Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome to Work in Progress, the live show from Reno Collective about work, life, and everything in between. My name is Colin.
And I'm Rachel. I felt like I
And
should do something there.
we're probably breaking up right now. I'm hoping that audio is getting through. I'm going to figure out how to fix this in future episodes, but we can't really do much about it right now.
Mm,
Of course, once I say something, I'm starting to get a green bar, so hopefully we'll be good. But
yay.
if you don't want to get motion sickness, just listen. Put the screen away. And of course, I am getting green bars now, which is good.
Good.
Um, so this week we are talking about. We were kind of just Wednesday came about really quickly, and with the
Mhm.
holiday and everything, and so we're going
Yeah.
to be talking about the life-changing magic of co-working, which
Yes.
is channeling a little bit of Con Marie vibes there with the
Mm-hmm.
life-changing magic of tidying.
Yes, of tidying up. Exactly. Yeah, we're going to talk about a couple things. A lot of us, well, not a lot of us, some of us are looking at making that transition. Well, are working from home still. Another segment of us are transitioning from work from home to being IRL in real life. I always want to say Ireland when I see IRL. But then also, doing that hybrid work setup that some people are looking at as well, and that we at the collective are actually expanding our memberships to include a more hybrid lifestyle as far as membership goes. Yeah, talk about remote work, what it looks like nowadays, how it's evolved, how co-working has evolved, and then what the new future of work. I liked your addition here, Colin, about like many other co-working spaces, we've used the tagline the future of work, and
Yeah.
it's the new future of work.
Yeah. That's one of the things that we've seen. I
Mhm.
mean, I guess, we've had a physical space since 2010. I was
Right.
working on co working as like a concept in 2007. So it's been
Oh, yeah.
14 years of watching co working. And
Uh-huh.
most of us were using the tagline future of work at the time. And no one was really like trying to trademark it or anything. And it was just kind of, we were all way too early. And back then, we were having to convince every person that we knew why you would work in the same place.
Right.
Versus today, we don't necessarily have to convince people. We just have to, work on getting back to being open and
Mm-hmm.
people being feeling safe and getting vaccinated. And with that, a lot has
Yep.
changed. So I think the first thing we're going to talk about is just kind of like what our work from home setups were,
Yep.
because that's something that's changed for me. Is now I have a pretty legit setup here at home. I always come here to do the show because I've got the streaming computer and all of that here.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been the same for other people, is that they also now have figured it out. And that doesn't mean that everyone wants to stay home, right? There's homeschooling. There's kids still needing to go back to school. Some people can't go back to work because of kids at home.
Yeah.
Maybe other spouses working from home. So
Yep.
there is going to be, I think, like a more of a hybrid of we have these
Mm-hmm.
cool setups at home. We get some
Mm-hmm.
certain kinds of work done at home and certain work we want to get in the space for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And even that idea of meeting people in a space somewhere that isn't necessarily a coffee shop, which used to be our old like comparison was,
Mm-hmm.
working from a co-working space instead of a busy coffee shop. And now it's sort of, well, you can work from home, but maybe you want to meet strangers not at your house.
Right.
Maybe you
And
want
then
to
the
come
issue
somewhere
with
else.
a cafe is that you don't control that environment. So
Right.
if you're trying to get your first client, that might not be, I
Mhm.
think it's generally acceptable these days, but if you want to show professionalism and have a conference room and have good
Yeah.
internet, right? Like, coffee
Mhm.
bar and things like that, we love them, but you're going to get a little ticket for an hour of internet, and it's a pain to deal with all
Yeah.
of that. And then you lose some of the tools and things like having fiber
Mhm.
internet, having good, rooms for video
Mhm.
calls and stuff like that, which I know some
Exactly.
people try to do their phone calls and video calls from a coffee shop, but it's not. It's like, read the room. It's not really the right place for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I did watch a little bit of Master of None, and there was a funny scene where he was doing a Zoom call. It's kind of great.
Yeah, he did his
So,
audition in a coffee shop, and
yes, that's right, the
it was
audition.
amazing. So yeah, highly recommend Master of None if you haven't seen it. First
Yes,
season,
yes.
second season too.
Yeah,
Um,
very funny.
yeah. So for me, I have at home here. I'm gonna probably be changing it. This episode was on my mind because I need to do the Con Marie version of Life Changing Magic myself.
Right?
Is that all the crap behind me needs to get cleaned out this week finally? So
Oh man.
just kind of doing my own spring cleaning and figuring out what desks set up, because right now I have a standing desk that I'm at with a monitor in front of me. I have the iMac next to me that's streaming this, and I've got some lights and a camera, and that's pretty much all I need. It's in a separate room, which again, not everybody necessarily has that they
Yeah.
can dedicate to that. But it works out for me, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty happy with it. So, what kind of setup do you have?
So because I decided to go back to school, I need both a working setup that suits me for when I'm working from home. And if I'm working from home on collective things, it's usually because of a child. So either they're out of school, which we're about to hit summer, they're out of school, or someone's homesick or something like that. But then I also needed it to be conducive to sitting and studying for many hours at a time. So I've gone through a couple iterations of chairs. That's for sure. I have a couple of different desks at home, in fact. One desk that suits me great. I shrunk my desk space, which at first I thought would be a little uncomfortable, but it makes it perfect for the things that I need on my desk. And I've managed to narrow down all of the extra bits and bobs, like the cup of pens and the this and the that. Now it all has a place. Um, so that's one of the things that I really needed. And I invested in a camera so that I have better Zoom capabilities for doing classes and interviews and such that we have to do with school. So yeah, I'd say I have what I like about having the access here is that it's just a little notch above what I have at home as far as professionalism and sort of anonymity, rather than being in my bedroom, in my office space where it is personalized. Like I have my colors and my pictures and my this, versus coming to a space that's a little more neutral. It's there's a difference. And there's no barking dog in the background. You don't have dogs. You don't have a dog, but I've got a dog.
Yeah.
And is very loud when he's at it, which is just not professional.
Well, and
I mean, it's acceptable, but
yeah, it's seeing kids and animals and
mm-hmm.
homes on video calls is becoming a lot more the norm now. And
Right.
I've taken to working at one of the offices upstairs in the co-working space, and I thought I was gonna kind of leave it pretty much where it was in terms of like aesthetics and things, and I'm already starting to tweak it. I have that the plywood standing desk now upstairs, so that I can actually stand, because the desk is not a normal sit stand desk.
Right.
So it's kind of like one of those ones that you notch together, and you can build it and set it at different heights.
Mm-hmm.
And then slowly just things are starting to come through, and I'm sharing an office with Sam. Sam likes the lights off. I like them on. So now we have to figure out what that's going to look like. Maybe we just get a dimmer for the light switches or something. But
Right.
so it's all those challenges of working with teammates, right? And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that transition from work from home to either full-time IRL or hybrid IRL is going to be interesting,
Yeah.
right? In the office.
Yep.
It's not a return to work because I don't know about you, but none of us have stopped working.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's a big thing. Is it's like it might be a return to
the office.
that less personal work, you know,
Yeah.
like less of a, that's right, this is my bed behind me, which I always find so weird in Zoom calls. There shouldn't be a bed anywhere near you in a Zoom call unless it's that kind of Zoom call. But it does, it sort of takes, it just makes it a little more neutral. Not that you have to, and not that every situation calls for it, but I sort of like that aspect. But at the same time, I get used to the kind of music that I listen to at home with studying. And, you know, I tend to do like classical or instrumental while I'm studying so that I'm not distracted. But here it's not really, instrumental fits, but not really classical in the collective. You know, it like needs a little bit more
Yeah,
energy.
we can
So
try
the
it.
music choice, I don't know. I don't think I want to listen to classically.
Yeah. Music has always been one of those challenges because everyone has their own tastes and
Yeah,
you don't want elevator music. And but that's
right.
definitely one of like the whole set and setting, right? Is it's thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what does that new future of work look like. And
Yeah.
in most cases that future that everyone kept talking about, it has been here for most of our members. It's been here for a really long time, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, there's that meme of, you know, like, oh, is this your first time? And for most people going remote, it was their first time. For most of our members,
Yeah.
this is has been our norm for a really
Mm-hmm.
long time, whether they work
Mm-hmm.
for themselves or um, you know, or working for a company. They're just used to that. And so
Yeah.
we have to think about what are some of those new challenges that come with the new version of future, like what's the future work look like for the next 10 years.
I think there's, I think the focus on audio visual technology, you know, your Wi-Fi speed, those sorts of things are actually becoming not just pluses, but they are becoming requirements. I mean, I always had a desk at home. I've always had a space that I could do work because I would, you know, bring work home, even if, you know, before the collective, when I was doing public relations and such, I'd always have a space that I could at least do work from. But it was
Mm-hmm.
generally like, you know, either a coffee table or a dining table, right? But now it's the space I created, the space I have at home has to be suitable to actually work a full day. And I think having that flexibility is nice as far as the future of work, like being able to do something from home. But when you need it, having the reliability of access points and speed for your internet and a you know, quality video and quality sound that you can use. I don't know, I just feel like that's that, it's like the difference between, okay, well, aside from developers, the difference between showing up for an interview in a hoodie and showing up for an interview in like a button-up shirt, right? Like
Yeah.
developers, Zuckerberg, great, but you know,
I would argue that developers should probably not be showing up to interviews in a hoodie either, but
yeah.
now with Zoom, people maybe aren't even wearing pants for their interviews. So
You know, I just did an interview and I was like, do I need to change out of my like sweat, like lounge pants? You know, I think I will just to like take myself out of the
yeah.
space.
No, and we hear that from members, right? That I
Mhm.
need to get up, take a shower, get dressed.
Yeah.
I rarely, I've acted most of this pandemic as if I was going into the office, even if I stay at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
More to say it's time to work, and same with being
Hmm.
able to close the door after work and say work is done,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of people are really excited about work from home. I think that the novelty is going to start wearing off.
Hmm.
We've seen it before, but again, I think people have tuned their homes to having a better setup. So maybe it'll last a
Right.
little bit longer, or you might come into a space now when you want to collaborate or for social
Hmm.
things. Like we have our first happy hour since the pandemic began, right?
Ah, yep.
So we've got that on
In
Friday
person.
in
We
person.
we tried some Zoom happy hours. I mean, they, you know,
It's just not the same.
they all got zoomed out, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So just ways to bring members back together. And
mhm.
for us, I think, I mean, even the magical was life-changing magic of tidying has applied to our space. So what are some of the
Oh,
things that we've
yeah.
been doing there?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have most definitely looked at the things that bring us, and to borrow one of her focuses, bring us and our members joy. So we have gotten rid of some of those things that are like the noise in the background, replacing tables that we've had forever to improving the actual feel of a room with the way the light comes through the room, or improving the way sound is bouncing
Mm-hmm.
off of walls, those kinds of things, so that we're not in a space that is filled with distractions, and people can, come and focus and work. Because I think that's a huge thing at home, is you are surrounded by distractions.
Oh
And
yeah.
so having those few days off, whether you do one day a week or whether you're coming in every 5 days a week, to have that sort of clean and tidy, both physical and like mental space
Oh yeah.
in the collective, right?
Yeah.
Like tidying up the little corners. We've never been messy, but we have done a lot of like, DIY. So we've
Yeah.
got some things to clean up as I
Yeah, I
look
mean,
out.
even our server room, right? Our server room.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a room where all the internet comes into. We have, I mean, this being a recording
Yep.
studio, we have a server room, right? So
Yep.
that room is where everything went into for the audio recording and everything. And both, I mean, there's been times where you've cleaned it out, purged it, and then I
Right.
find things to fill it with.
Yeah.
And we
We both
just
do.
got
Yeah.
rid of a bunch of more things. I mean, we had stuff from I think the 90s in there, and we haven't even been in
Yep.
this building since then. So
Yep.
a lot of tech that I think a lot of us are like, this might be useful one day, and it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
be useful to us. So
Mm-hmm.
we can thank it and
Right.
let it go, just like Conmarie
Yeah.
recommends. And if you haven't read her book, it is worth a quick read. If you struggle with getting rid of the clutter in your home office, I know for me, like walking into this room is really stressful for me right now, because literally,
Yeah.
like, there's like not very much space on the floor. You can't see it intentionally
No,
on the
right.
camera right now, but and it's little projects and piles of things that I've sorted, and some needs to be donated and some needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
But we just need to get through all of that.
Yeah.
We've always joked that it you coming into the space, it has to be better than working from home, right? What is the point of going to a space that has more distractions if you need to
Right.
get work done? And so
Mm-hmm.
for us, we're not so worried about, are you going to go to another co-working space? Are you going to go to Starbucks? Are you going to go to coffee bar? It's how are you working at home, and how can we help you be better at your
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're only coming in once a week or twice a
Right.
week. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, we're recording this the first week of June, and locally, kids get out of school next Wednesday. They're supposed
Yeah.
to be out this Friday, but it's next Wednesday because of smoke days and snow days and such.
Oh
But
boy, smoke days.
yeah, those smoke days, I do not miss those, but those will be coming up soon. And that's another thing, is we are in a building that's equipped to take care of things like that much more efficiently than you might be at home.
Mm-hmm.
We have a calendar that we mark down the filters, and we've got air filter and purifiers in different rooms and spaces, and we have janitorial, and so
Yeah.
that the space is getting cleaned, that's perhaps in a different way than at home. um yeah, it's having kids come home is going to be very distracting, whether you have them in camps or keeping them busy. This just does start that season of activity that is a big break from school season, or school seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, which and we see that at the beginning of, we see some people that never come in, or we don't see people who never come in during the summer because they're busy at home or they're traveling, etc. Or we see people who start coming in more during the summer because they can't get anything done at home.
Yeah.
Like,
That's been the tricky thing. I swear every year, I think we probably could go back now and get better data, but sometimes it was whole years where we were like, people don't come in the winter, people only come in the summer. And then the next
mm-hmm.
year it was the opposite of that. The next year was the opposite of that. It's
Right.
it's hard to know, because with holidays, people are in and out. Summertime,
Mhm.
same. We've had years where it's been just super quiet, and we've had years that are super
Yeah.
busy. So I'll be curious to see. I
How the
predicting
economy goes and who actually
exactly.
leaves town. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm predicting that we'll see more people coming back once school is back
Mhm.
in session, which sounds like
Mhm.
in Washoe is actually going to be sooner than later, right?
Yep.
Smaller summer. So,
Yep. Should
yep,
be, I believe it's still, or it's going to be that first week of August.
yeah,
Yeah. I think the next school year is going to be for parents or people who've got children at home, parents or not, is going to be sort of a new like hard start. Not a
yeah,
difficult start, but just like a fresh start because we did COVID through half of 2 school years ago, and then this school year has been hit and miss at the beginning, and then now at where we are at this point, it's masks are not mandatory for it apparently any we it's so confusing. But in the summer is when we're expected to see younger vaccinations available for younger kids.
hmm
So when school starts, it feels like, okay, are we going to be in that new, fresh beginning? And I think, like, I, for one, will be looking at the collective and co working through those eyes as well. Like, okay, there's a new, fresh beginning. We've cleaned everything up. We're vaccinated. We're, like
yeah.
ready to get back to quote unquote normal,
And
or
I do
new
imagine that some
normal.
people are probably holding off until they pull that band-aid off, right? They
Mm-hmm.
have a checklist of things that need to be taken care of before they can think about coming
Yep.
in. I know like Mike was in today and he has to figure out what life is going to look like for the summer and then what does it look like for
Mm-hmm.
school when it comes back, and he has to
Yeah.
decide, right? He wants to come back to his desk, but it doesn't make sense to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to figure that out. It's going to be a little different for everybody. So
Yeah.
I'd say
Yep.
for the last couple of minutes, what let's talk about some things that are normally we throw out some topics and we talk about whether or not they're underrated or overrated.
Right.
But what are some underrated and overrated things about this new state of work, or what we think might come? Maybe things that haven't quite yet happened. So, Zoom calls. What are some of the things?
Right.
Is that underrated or overrated?
You know, I actually, so I don't have to do Zoom calls on a constant basis. Um, People who are doing them for constant like customer communication or clients or coworker communication, I can totally understand why they'd be burnt out of it. But I think it is so efficient for two reasons. There's no travel in between meetings. Now, you do have to still control your time
Mm-hmm.
because it can just go on and on. Um, so that is up to the user to do that, whether you're in person or not. But there's no travel between meetings, and your meetings can be across the world. I still am just that's been a real silver lining of this whole pandemic was the ability to connect with events that are happening in cities all around the world and learn something from an event that I would never I wouldn't have known about because I don't follow the XY place in Kuala Lumpur who's having a discussion about X, Y, and Z. But if it pops up now, I could actually just zoom in. I can just like link in and watch the program.
Yeah.
So for me, it's sort of underrated because I think there's so many more capabilities to it, or there's so many more possibilities. But yeah, I don't. That's also from someone who doesn't spend 7 or 8 hours on it.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
at the same time, like for people who are on there that for a full day, it's exhausting to be on video, but honestly, it's
yeah,
also exhausting to have an 8 hour long gauntlet of meetings too. So,
yep, yep,
I think part of it, I'm getting more and more comfortable talking to cameras and doing things like this.
mm-hmm,
Obviously calls with stand up and stuff like that at work are a little bit different, a little less casual in some ways and more
mm-hmm,
more formal in other ways.
yeah,
So I would say it's underrated as well. I think Zoom, I hope that I'm sure that they put a lot of thought into the name of the company, but it becoming very much like Kleenex and Xerox is that when people use it as a verb
mm-hmm,
to zoom in to an event, right, is
right,
is huge, and Zoom has kind of won this. At the same time, I know a lot of people don't want to ever see or hear the word Zoom ever again, but
Right.
I would definitely put it
Right.
in underrated. I mean, the other one that I would throw out is online conferences versus physical
Mm-hmm.
conferences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I attended one last week that I probably would not have gone. I know I wouldn't have gone to if it was in person
Mm-hmm.
last week. I
Yeah.
might have if it was later this year gone in person, but I was actually not sure like what is going to be the payout. Like, are the talks going to be something that actually are relevant to me,
Yeah.
or is it something that I can watch recorded later? Because
Mm-hmm.
even for in-person conferences, like for me, the biggest thing is like the hallway track. It's the
Right.
people you meet. At the old Salesforce, Dreamforce conferences, it was who you're going to the after parties with and things like that, where you end
Okay.
up making new partners for projects, getting clients,
Mm-hmm.
and then you watch the talks online afterwards, right? You don't actually
Yeah.
spend your time in that. So it was kind of cool. People have been trying to reinvent that. With this one, it was kind of in e-commerce land, and so being able to see and hear from a bunch of different companies, but then also be able to talk and see people. You actually could talk to the attendees in like little
Oh,
breakout rooms. So yeah,
interesting.
so I'd say
S-
online conferences are underrated for the same
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. And, I have not done much of the sort of the networking side of Zoom. I've been in a couple of forced, okay, everyone's in a breakout room. And then all of a
Right.
sudden it's you and five people. And okay,
Yeah.
which has been the two times I've done that has been very awkward because it's just like you're broken up and there you go. And then we'll call you back. And it's,
Yeah, this one was
you
a
know,
different app where you could watch it, and then the speakers went into their own rooms, and it was a
oh,
small enough conference where you could go in, and there was like 16 slots for people to jump on video and ask questions to the speakers,
wow.
which, to be honest, was probably more access to the speakers than you would normally get. And then the really cool thing is those talks were not live.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for them to be live, so they
Right.
recorded them and they streamed them live.
Mm-hmm.
No hiccups, no transition problems, no tech problems,
Right.
because it was all they did dry runs. They paid all their speakers to do this multiple times and get it right, and
Yeah.
it turns into a really good event.
That's interesting too, because I was just thinking about that, the in between of those, like the networking and such. What happens with the speakers? They get pulled aside as they're leaving the stage, or someone
Right.
asks a question. And, having been not, I have not spoken at a large event, but having spoken at a couple of different smaller, group events, the inability to just like help someone like disappear, like,
Yeah.
oh, here's a green room, just go in there and disappear, like, whereas if you're on Zoom and such, you can take a break, like shut the computer, take a break, decompress, and then come back
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
next
Getting attacked
networking.
right after you've done
Yeah.
talking is the worst.
It's
Not
like,
that it's like a cocky thing. It's just like you just got done talking and your brain is done.
right,
I knew that they
right.
were recorded because the speakers were answering questions while their speech was happening. And so they were in
Oh,
chat with the attendees watching themselves give a talk.
that's
Yeah,
wow. Talk about
a
like
little meta there, but
two things at once.
yeah.
Yeah,
But people were
that's,
asking questions, and
hmm.
I mean, a lot of them were opportunities for their own companies, right? So they were
Yeah.
companies that help e-commerce people sell more product or build better tools, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was in the speaker's interest to respond to some of those things and as well. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, that makes a
let's
lot of
see
sense.
what else. We've done standing desks. What are other things about the
Mm-hmm.
new state of work? I'm kind of excited about these phone rooms. We can't really do underrated,
Oh,
overrated because we haven't used them yet, but
yes,
we
but
have phone rooms coming.
excited. Mm-hmm.
So I'd say like underrated is having a space that's designed to do video calls, right?
Yeah.
Even the room that
Yeah.
you're in now, we're looking at
Mm-hmm.
how does light and reflections and
Mm-hmm.
sound and all that kind of stuff work in a
Yep.
space like that.
Yeah, the right kind of light. I mean, I've got one of those, just like a desk ring light sort of a thing. And I mean, it's taken a while to like really perfect, or not even perfect, but to improve it to this sort of level. Yeah, all of the equipment that I think a benefit, huge benefit of having a space you can go to do Zoom calls and such is
Yeah.
not having the dog in the background, is having equipment that you might not want to own, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do I need to invest in this stuff? It's going to end up in a closet, or I've got to, I've got to store it anyway. So why not just, utilize a space that has already figured it all out for you and just use it?
Unless you are a city council person, then I think you need to
Oh,
buy a
yeah.
microphone.
Yeah. No,
The
if
city
you
should
are
buy
any
you a
kind
microphone.
of, yes, if you are any kind of representative that has been voted in, you should have the equipment.
What I love is
Yeah, no
AOC.
excuses.
AOC actually worked with a computer team to build out an amazing streaming rig for
Nice.
her. Good camera, good lighting. But like listening to a City of Reno conference call, it's like I think early in the days you could see people like forgetting to turn off their camera when they go to the
Yeah.
bathroom and getting
Yeah.
called out. But like the biggest thing, this is more on the audio video side, is that people can watch shitty video for a long
Mm-hmm.
time. They
Mm-hmm.
cannot listen to shitty audio for a long time.
Yeah.
And so audio is the most important thing. And even, I have a mic on a boom arm here that was not that expensive. You're
Mm-hmm.
running on the Yeti. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of really affordable options. So if you're out there Zooming and doing a lot of Zoom calls and you care about
Yep.
how you sound, a
Yeah.
microphone that's not built into your computer is definitely a must.
See, and what's interesting is I think that's another part. I believe that that is another part of the new future of work, is that all these little technical things are no longer going to be excusable.
Yeah.
So just like, having a computer that didn't have the most current version of Word when you were working with a client and you needed to share files back and forth, it's not
Yeah.
acceptable. And I
Yeah, it
think
can't be. You're
soon,
not talking to somebody on a tin can, and that might be
right.
why Zoom is so exhausting for people. Is that
Hmm.
they're listening to horrible audio and trying to
Yeah.
overparse what someone's saying.
Hmm.
And even mine, I think my mic for some reason on this setup ends up being quieter than most, and that's like that. That's something that bothers me. People on stream may not ever hear or tell, but it's one of those things where like I care about those things and I'm always tweaking them.
Yeah.
I could just go out and get a Yeti. Like your voice comes through for me really well.
Hmm.
So figuring out that, and again, it depends on what your industry is. If you're a
Yeah.
developer and you're not talking to clients, it may not
Hmm.
matter. If you're, a marketer and you're pitching people all the time, then it
Yep.
matters a lot. So
Yeah. Yeah, for certain. I Getting pitched on something and someone's laundry is hanging up on the back of their door is a little like, no, I'm good.
yeah.
Like, I realize you're working from home, but no, I'm good.
And there's some personal things to that I've actually
Mhm.
liked. I work with the Shopify a lot, and I had to do some Zoom calls with some of their employees, and it was kind of nice to not see somebody in like a cubicle on the other end.
Right.
But I think you could tell that they all have been told to like dress up your background a little bit, have some like art objects, right,
Hmm.
and make it
Yep.
look nice so that you're
Yeah.
representing the company still in a lot of ways when
Yeah.
you're turning on the camera. So
Yeah.
yeah, super important.
All those good things. There's a
Virtual
whole nother
backgrounds, yeah.
category. Yeah, I was going to say
So
there's a whole nother category, virtual backgrounds.
yeah, so Jonathan mentioned some of the other downsides to working from home were not walking around enough or as
Oh,
much
yeah.
as he does at the office, which I totally get,
Hmm.
and then virtual backgrounds for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Virtual backgrounds, overrated, underrated.
My computer is too old to do virtual backgrounds.
Yeah,
So I need to upgrade.
mine won't connect. I'm actually quite happy that I can't do virtual backgrounds because I see them sometimes and I think, why?
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother
Sometimes they're
choice.
good.
That's a whole nother choice. Yeah.
It is. It is. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're very funny.
Yeah.
We had Bernie Sanders in our virtual background at the collective. That was very funny.
When everyone was photoshopping Bernie Sanders. And everything, yeah.
Yes, yes, after the inauguration. Big
So
headlines.
there's a topic that I was going to talk about on this show, which I think we'll leave to the next week. But that a lot of the things that we're talking about is about knowledge work specifically. Like this, a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
this is gonna. I think we might need to do a prediction, maybe Q&A episode next week about just like questions that people might have or how do they improve their home setup. but also us just doing predictions around, right now you see a lot of news about people not wanting to go back to work, quote unquote, whether
Yeah.
that's because companies aren't paying enough, or is it tied to certain industries like hospitality and service industry? Is it, what is going on there? And if you're interested in that stuff, I highly recommend listening to Marketplace or the Make Me Smart podcast from it's not NPR, but
Guy Raz.
what is it? APM, so American Public
yes.
Media. They have a podcast form, and this week they did a lot of topics on the labor force and things like that. Because I know that like we're in a little bubble of knowledge workers, people who work on the internet, but what does this look like for people who have to go into a space, right? Daycare, schools, teachers, service industry, where the economy won't be back on track until all those jobs are filled again. And some people aren't going to put up with shitty wages, shitty benefits anymore. And so what does that look like? And I think that might be fun to explore next week.
Fun is relative, but yes.
I'm excited.
Shitty wages.
I think we're going to go there.
Yeah. I think that's great.
The cliffhanger that I'm going to leave you with, there was one of the episodes, it had an interview with someone from Reno, and they were like, well, we were paying 15 and we bumped it up to 17 and people still aren't coming. And it's like, I don't know if they can do the math there on the whole $2 that they expect people to jump at, but it's not that, I get it. Businesses need to make enough money to pay their people. And if they're not making enough money, then it's a vicious circle. But we can talk about this ad nauseum next week.
Yeah. And business survival too. I had a talk with a friend today that I said, just because you have a business doesn't mean I'm going to pay you for your service. I may not need your service.
So it looks like we got 2 topics for next week.
Yeah. All right then.
Resiliency and the labor force. We're turning into.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I'm channeling my Kai Rizdal. We'll get there.
Yeah. That sounds like a plan. Awesome.
We'll pick a fun topic as well for the third one.
Yeah, like peanut butter or something like that. Oh, various nut butters. Which one is best?
Awesome. Well, I think that is gonna do it. Let's see for chat here, which we're gonna leave you with a question of which bear is best is the question.
Which
bear?
Bear.
We'll see if anyone gets that.
I just watched a video of a 17-year-old girl shoving a bear off a wall.
That was amazing. Yeah. That is not what you should do when you see a bear.
No, it's not what you should do when you see a bear.
She threw that bear over the wall for sure.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Which bear is best? Go Google that if you don't know what it comes from.
I'm worried about the spelling, but all right then. Doing it.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. Good to see you, Zach. Good to see you, Jonathan. We'll see you next week.
Next week. Bye.